Hello, good morning, it's Leanne Peters here. I'm from templeofbalance.com.au, Temple of Balance on Facebook and Temple of Balance on YouTube. And I am here to talk about attachments. I've had a question a couple of weeks ago now. This video has been on my to-do list for a while. So I feel excited to be here finally doing it. So I have had questions about attachments, and I want to talk with you a little bit more about my interpretation and my feeling around attachments. And we'll be looking at things like detaching, giving our power away to things, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to talk about that during this connection today. I would think that I'd be here for 20 minutes, give or take, 5 minutes either side. Depends how much I want to say, I suppose. So I want to firstly send out an extra special welcome to my Temple of Balance patrons, my Pillar of Light family, and all of those of you who support my work through my website. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you also to those of you who supported through my online shop drop yesterday for my new ceramics pieces. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to be doing is mainly having a conversation, I guess one-sided, because I'm here basically just talking. And I've got my healing energy card, so we'll pull a healing energy card too at some point for the topic. So attachments. To me, attachments are unhealthy. So when I think of an attachment, I think of attaching to something. So I think octopus tentacle, I think a rope or a chain or something attached to something. I think of a dog on a dog chain with the dog collar on. So I think of attachments as being quite unhealthy. And it's interesting because I think it was last week, it might have been last week, I did a post up asking people what they thought of attachments, and I was quite surprised that a lot of people thought them quite positive. But it is just an interpretation and a language thing too. So for me, an attachment I would see as a negative thing, or as an unhealthy thing, an unsupportive thing. And I would think of a connection as more of a healthy version of attachment that doesn't have a heaviness to it somehow. So attachments to me have a bit of a heaviness. I've seen a lot in healing work that I've done with people throughout the years. There are a lot of attachments to the past, and I'll see that energetically as usually like a chain or something, or a rope or something that's tied around an area of the body. It could be the throat, the belly, the legs, or the ankles, or the wrists, that trails off into the past, and that shows me a negative attachment to something that's happened in the past. It might not mean that we want to have this attachment, because sometimes we're attached to things, whether it's to do with our past or our present or people or what have you. Sometimes we're attached to things that we might not necessarily like, but it seems to just be consuming us in some way. So things like addictions or bad habits, I would also interpret those as an attachment, because it's something that we're attached to, that we are giving our power away to. That's the other key thing to me about attachments, is that attachments tend to be something we give our power away to. So whether it's the past, it could be something that happened in the past that we just can't get off our mind. It might be something that happened that is still very fresh, or something still we very much talk about, or we still even get emotional thinking about. So there is not only an attachment, there is power that we're giving to whatever we're attached to. And we might have all good reasons to do it, but that's just the way the energy seems to be, or what I've noticed. If we're attached to an addiction or a bad habit, then it's something we're giving our power away to. It could be a drug or something, addiction like that, that's pretty obvious, maybe, to some. But it could also be, an addiction to food, an addiction to getting attention. Could also be things that are happening sort of subliminally that we're attached to. In other words, we're giving our power to this thing. So these attachments, I see them like cords or chains or octopus tentacles that come out of our body and trail perhaps into the past, maybe trail into the future if we're worried about the future or we feel anxious about something that's coming up. We could very much be attached to something there that we can't get off our mind and we're giving our power away to. We could also be attached to ideas. We could be attached to people. We could be attached to old behaviours or attitudes that we have. We could be attached to old ways that we've seen people to be and not really allowing them to change in our eyes. So basically, an attachment to me is something that we're giving our power away to. It drains us. It consumes us. We can become obsessive about our attachments. We can become very protective about our attachments too. You know, protective and defensive of our attachments. So I don't usually feel it these days, but in the past, when I get defensive about something or I have a defensive reaction, I then stop usually later and think, okay, what was I actually so defensive about? Why did I need to be defensive at that time? What was I trying to protect? And it's usually something that we're attached to, that we've been giving our power away to. It could also be old beliefs or current beliefs and things like this too. Ways that behaviours that we do, maybe out of habit. So as you're sitting here and as I'm talking about this, maybe consider, what do you feel attached to? Or, in other words, attached to time. That's a good one, Angela. Or what are you giving your power away to at the moment? So what is taking up a lot of space in your head? What are you thinking about or needing to talk about a lot? What are you feeling defensive about and why? And it's probably draining, because when we give our power away to things, whatever it might be, it drains us. So our energy is sent out through that tentacle or that attachment, and this attachment, this attachment, this attachment. And sometimes we might have dozens of attachments, these cords that come out of us that are attached to something, an idea, a goal, a person, a future anxiety, a past thing, this happened, that happened, a worry about this, a fear of that. You know, there's so many habits and addictions. There are so many things that we could be currently attached to. Cords, we can think of them as cords too, perhaps. But like I say, for me, I like to think, okay, am I giving my power away to this? If so, it is an unhealthy attachment. If I'm not giving my power away to it, then it might be a healthy bond I have with my children, for example. That feels more like a connection, something that's healthy, something that's not draining of me, something I'm not attached to or invested in any sort of outcome or trying to control or feel scared about or needing to defend, if you know what I mean. So think about, as you're sitting here and listening, what are you attached to? What are you giving your power away to? And is it working for you? Is it working for you? Because chances are it won't be, because it's likely very draining and very consuming, especially mentally, very mentally and perhaps even emotionally consuming. So it was asked in the question that I was sent about wanting me to explain what I mean about attachments, is when I'm smudging. So when I'm smudging, which we might do some smudging now. I'm just going to go and grab my smudge stick, which is literally just here on the floor. So hold on 1 second. So when I'm smudging, you may have noticed that this is what I do. So I'm just lighting this piece of sage now. So I'm very aware, as I became more aware of the things I was attached to and the things that were taking my power away, I became very proactive in noticing what I was attached to and doing something about it quickly. So when I light a piece of sage like this, sage stick, and you can take a big deep breath now if you want to, because we're going to take some steps to release some attachments that you may have now noticed. I ask the sacred smoke to wash over us and carry away with it all cords, hooks, attacks, and attachments, which is probably how this whole video came to be, from someone watching and asking about it. So I think of when I'm smudging or when I'm clearing myself like this, I think about releasing those cords, those hooks, those attachments that I have to other things. And if other people are attached to me, or if I've got attachments coming at me like hooks, some people trying to hook into me, which I get in the type of work I do, I step back very quickly, and I have very, very strong boundaries so that I don't get hooked into by other people. So all the attachments that I feel in my body now, not that I feel any right now, but if I did, these are all my responsibility. They're me attaching to something of whatever nature it is. Others coming at me, I have boundaries up for that. So I notice very quickly if I'm trying to be taken advantage of, or if people are trying to give their power to me. No way, I don't want other people's power. And this can be what happens in this sort of work that I do too. So I don't want people's power. I want to help people recognize their own power. It's of no use to me at all. In fact, it's just not helpful for the person. So I am completely responsible. I own what I'm attached to. I own my bad habits. Am I happy if I've got a bad habit, something that I do that I consider a bad habit or an addiction? If I had something like that I was attached to, that I really needed for some reason, the constant fix or what have you, of food or cigarettes or drugs or what have you, or alcohol, if I needed that, then that's up to me to own that I have that attachment, I have that connection, I have that addiction. What am I going to do about it? Am I happy to continue giving my power away to this addiction or this thing? Or do I need to take steps to start severing and detaching from it so I can get my power back? This is why I never even tried coffee, because I saw from a very young age people that I was reasonably close to being obsessed with coffee. And you could not even speak to them until they had their morning coffee, and that was by the middle of the day. And I thought as a young kid, that doesn't make any sense. Why can I not speak to you or interact with you till you've had your coffee? I did not want to be that addicted to something that I won't even talk to, someone that I supposedly care about until I've had my coffee and my cigarette fix or whatever. Like, I saw from a young age that is just not a way that I want to be. So I've chosen from a very young age, I never want to try coffee. I don't even want to taste it. I don't want to taste drugs. I don't drink alcohol, because to me, I don't want to feel that feeling that that I've observed in other people. And I'm not saying that because, we all have our own choices here. We all are adults, and, we have our choices and things that we want to do. But for me, that's really important. I don't want to be attached to things that take me out or away from myself, because that's what these attachments seem to do. They consume us, and in some ways, I guess in truth, they're distracting us from who we are, because they're spreading our energy thin. We're giving our power away to all these things. Maybe we're trying to avoid something about ourselves. Maybe we're trying to avoid something about our life or the truth of our life. So are the attachments that you're noticing, are they actually distractions? Are they distracting you from the truth of who you are? So, it can be big realizations with this sort of stuff, but this is pretty deep healing stuff too. So what are you attached to, and what can you do about it if it's not working for you? So I like to also ask myself, is this attachment or connection, is it healthy? Is it supporting me? Is it helping me feel empowered and good? Or is it unhealthy? Is it unsupportive? Is it making me feel small and little? And that helps me, just those simple questions helps me see if something's good for me or not. And I care about myself. I want to be able to pick and choose these sorts of things, and I want to be able to feel good. I want to be able to feel that I'm supported in myself, and I want to be able to feel healthy. So how can you cut these cords? How can you detach from what you're attached to? It's going to be a different answer for depending on what it is. But the first step, like with anything, is to be aware of it. So if you're aware now that you have a bunch of attachments to things, or what have you, whatever it might be, then that's a great first step, because then you're aware of it. Okay, then is this something that you want to do something about? Is this attachment that you have over here okay for you to continue to be attached to? Or is it something that you determine is not supportive and not healthy and not helpful for you? If so, what can you do to detach? And I like the word and the energy that I feel when I think of detachment, and that is the way that I tend to tackle the things that I notice I'm attached to, because often the attachments are happening very subliminally under the surface, so it can be quite difficult to notice them, because they're just like a part of our everyday life, I suppose. So when we stop and become aware, and we're like, oh, actually I'm becoming too attached or too obsessed with this thing, or too addicted to this thing, I need to do something about it. So I like the word detached or detachment or detach when it comes to attachment, because I think of it as the opposite. So attaching to something, a bit like a sucker of an octopus, suckering onto something. And then detaching would be like unsuckering that, detaching it, and what have you. So there is a severing feeling to me when I think of detach. There's something about unplugging after something's been plugged in, if that makes sense. So I personally like detachment, and then once I'm aware, I then think about how can I detach from this thing. If it's something from the past, a past event that happened, or something that I can't get over, or I'm struggling to get over from the past, then I would look at detaching. So detaching, I imagine I'm severing these attachments. I'm removing those suckers that are sucked into something and are draining my energy. I look at cutting cords. I look at literally severing, detaching from these things that I'm attached to around me, that come out of my body and attached to various things. So I visualize myself actually cutting, detaching quite physically, severing any cords that I feel or any attachments that I feel. And then I look at the situation a bit deeper. Why do I have this addiction? Why do I have this attachment? Why am I obsessed with this thing or this person or this idea or this goal? Whatever it might be related to. Why do I feel that way? Is it coming from an insecurity that I feel inside? Is it coming from me trying to seek attention for something? Is it coming, why do I have this attachment? Why is it there? Why have I allowed it to occur? Because it helps me get to know myself better, and it helps me get to know, I suppose in some ways, my weaker areas. Because then once I'm aware of those weaker areas, I can take steps to support and strengthen those. So strong boundaries too, perhaps. And I find when I first sever from something that's serious, that's a big deal. It may be an old relationship. It may be perhaps a big addiction or something that's been very consuming for quite a period of time. I find I have to be very cold and almost distract myself from that attachment wanting to reattach back in because it seems to want to do that too. You know, it's like trying to break an addiction or a habit, and we might take all sorts of steps to sever, but then that cord just wants to go back in because the habit, in many ways, it's a mental habit too. The habit of it being there is we're so used to. So we've got to retrain ourselves to create a new habit or to break that habit. So the very initial time, especially of something serious, something quite consuming, can require us to be quite cold and have very strong boundaries up, because we've got to stand firm in our new decision not to have this attachment, not to have this addiction, not to have this consuming part of our life, or this unhealthy or negative or destructive part of our life too. So we have a habit of living it all that time, and then suddenly we sever it, suddenly we stop it, and then our mind still wants to go into that. So the attachment wants to reattach again. So being strong, being cold, have strong boundaries, being really strong with our self-control is really important. And I find distraction. So doing something else. So for example, when I'm feeling a little attached to sugary foods, because chocolate's yummy. Chocolate is so nice. And before I know it, I crave sugars. And this is just a very simple example, but something that's, I guess, the most recent attachment I can think of, because I've cleared mine quite a long time ago. So I might sneak back into chocolate because it tastes good and, it's so nice. So I might have a chocolate bar every now and then, or just have this bit of a sugary craving, which tends to then, there's a chemical thing I think that we must attach to with it. And then I notice I'm starting to feel a bit bloated, I'm not feeling very happy or energetic, and I can feel this pull to chocolate or this pull to sugar, this just very slight pull that I could really do with some chocolate right now, this sort of thing. I don't want to be feeling that either. So then I have to be really strict with myself to break that connection and bring something else in to replace it. So it's usually something like lemon and apple cider vinegar water, which is totally the opposite of chocolate and anything sugary. And just drinking that when I have that urge and that thought, chocolate, 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 having a drink of lemon and apple cider vinegar water is a great way to curb that kind of thing that wants to keep reattaching, that habit that wants to just keep forming. So doing that for a couple of days helps curb that craving, and then sugar is fine until, it might be a couple of months later when I really feel like a chocolate bar, and then I go through that little. So that's just a little attachment, but it really relates to a lot of the attachments that we might experience. So strong in ourselves and then distracting with something. If it's something like smoking or something that you do with your hands, it's a bad habit. I would imagine, you'd probably have these really fidgety fingers. So something like building or making something, every time you had that craving would probably help start retraining our mind to think about that instead of think about the things as we're breaking that attachment. I think that's sort of, I can't think of anything else to say now around attachments, so I'm going to add a card here, and if I think of anything else, I'll let you know. But I think it's really important that we are responsible for and enjoy and receive our personal power. And if we've got one thing, 10 things, 100 things that we're attached to, then that personal power that we could be feeling to get things done, to create new things, to have new ideas, to build our relationships, to heal ourselves, all that energy is spent doing other things or thinking about other things instead of bringing it back to home. What is most important right now? Or as I like to say, how can I tend to the nest? How can I tend to the things that are really important to me? And those attachments, they're not important to me. They just distract me from what is important to me. So I would rather be creating a piece of pottery or having an idea for something that can potentially support us on our journey than being distracted by a bunch of attachments to and fixations on things that just distract me from my true purpose. They distract me from my truth and distract me from who I am. So I don't want to allow that to happen, which is why I'm really super strict with my things that I'm attached to and the things that I potentially give my power away to. So I'm going to grab a card. In fact, I'll grab a card to go. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I trust something I've shared has helped you understand a bit more about yourself, or has given you some steps maybe you could try and take to support severing of attachment, detaching from attachments if you have any that are present right now, and maybe some things to think about. Just because it feels right to me and I share this stuff which is true to me doesn't mean it has to be true to you. So you might say, yeah, I agree with this, but I don't know if I agree with that. So just try it. Have a go. See how your attachments feel. Are they supporting you? Are they feeling good? If they are, then great. So, you know, just think of this as a guide only. So if you have enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button. Please show us some love. Please comment or share if you're inspired to, and if you would love to connect more privately, please send us a message through our website. If you would love to learn more about me and the work I do here at Temple of Balance, please visit templeofbalance.com.au. I have just finished recording a video about card readings and working out the relationships between cards. So, you know, like when a featured card comes up with my cards and then an extra one, how do they connect? So I talk in depth about the relationship and how to establish that connection between cards, which then helps take your readings to the next level. So that is going to be out on my website, I don't know, later today or tomorrow. So it's probably going to be about a $10 exchange. So keep an eye out for that. I'll let you know when it's available, but I'm sure you'll find it very helpful if you've been wanting to read cards on a more serious level. So the best healing energy card that we need, the majority of us for now, as we move on from here. How can we move forward with this information? How can we heal ourselves better? How can we be more conscious and aware of what we are attached to or obsessed by or addicted to? And how can we avoid those distractions so that we can start or do more of what we love and what we enjoy and what feels good about our life? So the best card for that, this is Healing Energy cards, and these are in creation, so they're new. We have this. Oh, okay. This is interesting. It's card 105, and it's called Disintegration. Disintegration. It says, things falling apart to come back together again in a new and better way. I don't think that we could have had a better card. It says, release your hold. Okay, release your hold on what you're attached to. Because if we have an invested interest, for example, if we're getting attention, if we are getting power, if that's something that we want, if we have an invested interest in what we are attached to, we're going to keep our hold of that attachment there. So this card's reminding us to be able to actually move forward. We might also need to think about which attachments are we actually holding on to, because we're scared. We don't want things to change. We might be scared that this relationship's falling apart. We might be scared of the future or the world the mad state of the world or whatever. So we might be actually holding on to these attachments without realizing it too. So do we need to release our hold and stop investing our time and attention and insecurities perhaps, or our fear, in these things we're attached to? Can we be okay to let our hold go and trust that things will work out the way they need to. Which then takes me back to the first sentence, things falling apart. If we're scared of things falling apart, if that's a big fear for us, then we might hold on because we're scared of change. So can you let your hold go? Can you let things potentially fall apart so they can come back together again in a new and better way? A healthier, more supportive way. It says here the glue is melting. The glue is melting. So the things that have been keeping those attachments stuck are melting. If we allow them to melt. Transformation, so things changing, reforming and repairing. Maybe we're thinking about redirecting our attention from the things that we're negatively attached to, releasing our hold and diverting our attention, repairing ourselves with something that's more supportive, something that is more empowering, something that aligns with who we are. Like for me, it would be art, which is why I do a lot of art, because I'm not detached and distracted by other things so much that I can actually use my energy to focus on the things that I want to create and the things that I want to build. So this is perfect, actually, allowing our old attachments, the ones that do not support us, to disintegrate, to be detached, to release our hold, and to transform into something better. Something that's better, that's more supportive, that's more aligned with our truth and the truth of who we are. So I feel like there's a lot in this, and it's not just about attachments, because it's also about healing. It's about our truth. It's about self-care, self-love, who we are. Where is your attention? Where is your energy going? And how can you get it back to what is most important? And what that most important is going to be different for us all. What's most important for me to focus on is going to be different for what's most important for you to focus on. So I would be sitting with my journal and I'd be making a list of all the things I feel attached to, all the things that I'm consumed by or distracted by, all the things that are taking my power away. I'd write a big long list of all those things, and I'd look at them from that different perspective of looking at the list. And I'd also look at the things that are really important to me and writing this list down. Now, what's compared here? How many of the things that you attach to are also on the things that you want to be focused on? The things that you want to be doing, the things that are important to you. I can almost guarantee there won't be many that match up, if any. And that can be a big eye-opener. So diverting our attention to the list of things that are important to us, rather than the list of things that distract us from what's important. Oh, there's lots to talk about. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I might see you again sometime soon. Sending you loads and loads of love with no attachments, just love from my heart to yours. Namaste. Thank you.